The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 99. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women finding their inner journey to self-confidence 5 days a week. Get your free audiobook by visiting thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Well, hello friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan. And today I have a special lady on today. She is known as the online marketing angel. You know, she has quite a story. The first time I even knew of her was actually through the internet, right? I saw her story and I was really inspired by her. So I knew, I had to bring her on because I know once you listen to her story, you'll be inspired as well. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Shalonda Gordon. Shalonda, how are you doing today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to the listeners.
I'm great. Thank you so much, Sheena, for having me on. It's an honor. Yeah, I actually came online in 2008. I basically have been an entrepreneur since day one, but went to college, ironically enough, for physical chemistry. So was set on a path to basically spend every day of my life in a lab. And since I dealt with physical chemistry, the type of lab work I did usually happened in labs with no windows, like in the basement, right? Because of the kind of research that we did. And at 19, while I was learning all this in chemistry, I realized I really don't want to be in a lab every day. And so I started my first network marketing company but stayed in college, kept trying to get the chemistry degree thing going. And eventually that didn't work. I left school like I just can't. This is not going to get me where I want to go. And at 25, I became a mom and I became a single mom. And at that time, I realized I had to find a way where I could be home with my kids. My whole vision changed. It wasn't about, I'm going to make money living my dream life. It was about, I want to make money so I can live a life where I can raise my daughter. And so basically I wasn't really getting child support. So when I came online in 2008 to really grow my network marketing business, I really just wanted to make enough money to supplement my income to create my own child support system. So like $300 to $400 a month, right? By 2008, I had 2 daughters. I had my second daughter in 2007. So at this point, I really needed to make that work. And that's pretty much where the journey started. And I haven't ever looked back. That $300, $400 a month turned into a couple of grand a month and went full time in 2013 and just loving life.
Awesome. That's an amazing story. Well, thanks for sharing that, Shalonda. And, it's funny. I didn't even know you took chemistry. And, I know what you mean. I mean, I took accounting and I thought that was the path that I had to go to because I'm Chinese, right? It's like Chinese people, good with numbers. You're going to accounting. And, I tried taking my certification. I was like, I am not an accountant. Like, this is not for me. So I totally understand what you're talking about, right? You think you're on the set path and you're like, this is not the path that I want to go. I don't want to be crunching numbers all day. So,
right.
So, thanks for sharing that. And, what's your cultural background?
Well, I'm African American and American Indian. So I'm a bit of a melting pot culturally, but I guess who is I haven't really not met 100%. Anyone that's 100% of everything, but yeah. So I'm just a kind of a blend. Yeah, awesome. I have some Dutch in me too. I know that Dutch in me. I'm a blend.
I love that. That's okay. It's all good. Well, thanks for sharing that. And what would be your favorite self-confidence quote?
My favorite self-confidence quote is, online, I'll lead with this. Online, and when I came online, and most of my life, I've been known for really being kind of giddy. I'm like always smiling. When I get scared, I smile. When I'm nervous, I smile. Just a real quick story. When I was 12, 13, I got caught shoplifting, and I lived in Germany, so I'm a military brat, right? So I lived in Germany, so the MPs had gotten me for shoplifting, and the lady, when my mom came in, the lady's like, you better come and get her, because she keeps smiling at me, and this isn't funny. And my mom was like, she's smiling because she's scared. Like, it's very clear. She knows very well this isn't funny. But with that, it's become kind of a tagline of keep smiling. And my favorite quote is, one who smiles rather than rages is always the stronger. And it's a Japanese proverb. I found that has been it really speaks to my life and how I've been able to overcome a lot of things because of the fact that I could, no matter what, find a smile. Even though it got me in trouble sometimes,
I love that story. And you know what? A smile can make a huge difference. Maybe you're walking on the street and there's someone who's like depressed, right? And you just give them a smile, like really, it just changes, right? And nobody, some people take that for granted. They don't realize how much they can change a person's life just by that simple act of smiling. So I really love that quote that you mentioned. And, in your own words, how would you define self-confidence?
I define self-confidence based on my experience, which has been believing in yourself even through your faults. Like when I was growing up in that sort of thing, I was raised kind of in a household where as long as you did good in school, as long as you got straight A's, as long as you did those things right, you could have whatever you want and do whatever you want. But the minute the grades weren't right, then it's like the whole world started falling apart. And with that, knowing it wasn't the intention of my family necessarily, but things happen and we form these beliefs. With that, I began to believe that my failures, because school was a very large part of my life, so I began to believe that my failures basically spoke to who I was inside and what kind of person I was. And if I failed at anything which was external from my being, that thing spoke to my internal being. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, in school, it's always like, if you get an F, you're a failure. That's it, right? And
right.
People see failure as a bad thing when failure is really a good thing, right? Because, you're learning something new, you know what doesn't work, and you can move on to find something else, right? Well,
yes.
In school, when you get an F, it's like you get punished. It's like they might label you as stupid, and that's not how we want to tell our kids, right? I mean, I was recently listening to an audio about how schools don't really teach kids how to have a vision, right? And that's really important because how are our children supposed to like see what their future's like if they don't even know what it is or how it is to have a vision in their life? So I really love that definition that you had. Shalonda, what was your life like before your discovery of self-confidence?
It kind of was living me. Like, I wasn't living life. Life was living me. I was constantly on the defense, never on the offense. And I say that because I was running. Basically, I was running for myself. I honestly, when I came home, I grew up in Germany from the age of 5 to 18. When I came to America at the age of 18, some people might not know, but when you grow up in a military environment outside of America and you're African American, you're considered American, right? So I was American my whole life. And even in Germany, I spoke fluent German. So when I was out in Europe, they would at least let me open my mouth first before making a decision on what kind of person, right? So when I came to America at 18, I realized that I was African American. And funny enough, I called my father, who's like he's a retired sergeant major now in the Army. And I'm like, Dad, you never told me I was black, right? He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, you didn't tell me I was black. I've been American my whole life, right? And now I'm here in this small town. And nothing against Indiana, it's a great state. But at the time, in the 90s, early 90s, when I got there, when I tell you, I didn't even get a chance to open my mouth. I was this black girl, and at that moment, my self-confidence that I had stored up, literally, they destroyed it all. It got to be, I was there for like 3 years before I transferred colleges, and it got to the point where when I would drive into the town, I could feel myself like desire to not live, right? Like it destroyed me. I couldn't even open my mouth. And the thing about it that was crazy is that I couldn't fix it. Like, I can't wake up tomorrow and not be black. I can't fix this, right? And I don't even understand what the problem is. But that was because I grew up outside of America. I never had to deal with those cultural type of issues that happen in the country, right? I read about it in school, learned about some things, but never really experienced it. So because of that, I spent like the next 10 years literally running from myself. I had no confidence in myself. What I thought I knew, I didn't know. What I knew, what I did actually know, I didn't believe I knew, right? And so for like 10 years, literally, I just ran for myself. To honestly tell you the truth, Sheena, I didn't really decide. And I do believe it's a decision, okay? I didn't truly decide to face myself and either forgive myself, forgive all of those that I felt had harmed me, forgive myself, and decide who I was going to be until I got pregnant with my oldest daughter. I always say my daughters saved my life at different times when they were born. Because my oldest, when she was born, the way I was living my life to avoid acknowledging that I had no self-confidence was I was smoking weed every day. I was drinking, right? I was not at my best at all. And so in order to overcome that, when I got pregnant with her, I knew I had to make a decision because the type of woman I was with no self-esteem, just broken and not broke. Being broken is not a bad thing. It's a good thing because you're soft and you can receive in that place. But I wasn't broken in a good way. I was broken with a hard heart, right? I didn't have a soft heart. I had a hard heart. And I didn't want to raise a lady from that because that's not what I was raised from. And I felt my baby deserved more. So while I was pregnant, I started to kind of research and find myself and find that confidence that honestly could never have been taken from me anyways, because I was born with it. It came inside of me. It's not something that I earned or something that I learned about over time. I came into this world being great, complete self-confidence. It's always been there. I had just decided to ignore it based on what other people, external forces, were saying to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And it's such a crazy story that you have, right? I mean, you're in one country, you're like, you had no clue, there was no like cultural barriers, and you come to America and it's like a big culture shock for you, right?
Right.
And it's the same, like Asian kid goes to Canada and they're like, whoa, I've never seen white people in my life, right?
Right.
So I totally understand, right? I never had like that kind of what you had to go through, right? Because I feel like Canada had more, they had more cultures and the barriers weren't as bad as probably some parts in the States. But I mean, I'm sure people still go through this every day, right? I mean, you see it in videos, the news, TV, right? Hear it from other people. So, this is such an important issue, and I'm glad you were able to bring this up. And, you mentioned your daughters were what made you change, and, what was your life like after that when you realized, you had to make a change for your daughters?
At that point, life was actually new. Like, I could sit here and be like, oh, it was the best thing ever, Sheena. I was just moving forward. You know what I mean? Yeah, the truth is, and this might be the truth that some don't want to hear, that aha moment was very real and very much there. And afterwards, when that saying, ignorance is bliss, that thing is so true, right? It's so true. Because once you know, there's no going back. And I will say this. Afterwards, one thing I will say is that I've never looked back. I look at struggles differently now, right? And I attack them differently. I celebrate them, ironically enough, right? And when you really lock down your self-confidence, which for me, it was a decision, but I also read a few books. Like I follow Bob Proctor a lot, and I read his You Were Born Rich, right? I'm currently doing his Winner's Image program. Right. So I love his stuff, but read a lot of books, of course, Napoleon Hill, read Cybernetics, Psycho-Cybernetics, so I could really begin to understand how my mind is working, how my self-confidence is working, and that kind of thing. So afterwards, now I'm more aware, right? And when you become more aware, you experience different kinds of situations, more situations differently. The only difference is how you respond to those situations, right? So since having my aha moment, since deciding that self-confidence is something that can never be taken from me. And I think when I minister and work with single moms, and a lot of the times when I'm working with them, they've been broken down. They've been kind of, verbally abused at times because of decisions that they made or, just having things happen that they didn't really plan on. And I always try to let them know that, once you build up this self-confidence and you understand that it's yours, it's not something that anybody can take from you. It's not like your car. The repo man cannot come and take it, right? It's not like anything that's out there. It's something inside. And once you realize this, you take a moment and become very aware of everything happening in your life, because reality is that we create every situation around us. So once we accept responsibility for that, hold on to our self-confidence. And yes, it grows as you continue to expand and overcome situations. You might not overcome them at first, but, the second time, third time you overcome them, which is why I say, afterwards I could act like it's been great. And what has been great is the fact that I can actually face situations with power, with strength, right? There's not all of this. There's no fear in that place. Now, sometimes I make mistakes because I'm not perfect and I still make mistakes. Yet I dust myself off, I get back up and I do it again, just a little bit differently. Like you said, I'm a marketer now. We're marketers, right? As marketers, we test, right? We split test. We test, we tweak one thing and then go again. Then if that doesn't work, we tweak another thing and go again. So that's how I experience life. Even as a mom, I realize I have two different daughters. They're totally different. And how I respond to one, I might try it with the other, but it simply doesn't always work. So I have to tweak it and go again, right?
Yeah, totally.
So that's how it's been.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're able to see things in a different light and a different perspective. Once you change the way you see things, it's such a, a big, like a big reality check, right? Like, you didn't realize you can do this just by doing these few tweaks in your life, right? And Shalonda, for the woman who's listening to your episode, she's also in her own journey of self-confidence. What would be that one tip you would give to her?
I would let her know to remember that your greatness is in you. It's not something added to you based on outside things. Remember that you were born great. You were born amazing. Living proof that this world definitely needs your smile, it needs your heart, and it needs you. Simple as that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And if our listeners want to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do, is there any links or any social media profiles we can connect with?
My website is theonlinemarketingangel.com. So that's theonlinemarketingangel.com. And on Facebook, I'm at ShalondaGordonFanpage.com, or it's Facebook Shalonda Gordon, the number 1. So Facebook Shalonda Gordon 1. So, and then pretty much Shalonda Gordon, they can Google Shalonda Gordon, they can find, yeah. I always say, I have an ongoing joke, I'm the most popular Shalonda Gordon in the world on the internet. But my name's not like the most common, ain't like everybody's name, Shalonda Gordon.
I love that. I'm going to start saying that.
Yeah, because more than likely, we have names that aren't like all that common, so,
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Shalonda, just head on over to thetaoofselfconfidence.com and search for Shalonda's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else we talked about. And I just want to thank Shalonda for taking the time to share her story with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been amazing.
It's an honor to have you on. So thank you so much. And to our listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of The Tao of Self-Confidence. Subscribe to The Tao of Self-Confidence on iTunes and Stitcher to hear more stories of amazing women finding their inner journey to self-confidence.